This is a guide to
Petrol Parts.
This mod adds new mechanisms, and more specifically new types of gears, as well as unusual shafts, that diversify your survival with the Cret mod, adding new functionality to it. And we will start with the Coaxial gears. This is how they look, and visually, they are very similar to the standard gears from the mod. Only inside them, there is no central part, namely the shaft. It just doesn't exist. They, as well as gears, are usually able to transmit rotation by connecting with each other. They are subject to exactly the same rules, but due to the fact that they lack a central part, this gives more functionality, and more specifically, will allow you to divide your chains of mechanisms in a more compact way. In addition, you can add a shaft to the Cox gear, which it lacks. Take the shaft in your hand, hold down the shift, and right-click. The first shaft will stop at you. And now click the second shaft on the coaxial gear, and the shaft becomes inside the gear. And now let's see how this gear differs from the usual one. The shaft can rotate separately from the gear itself, from its outer part. And this shaft can have a completely different direction of rotation, as well as a different rotation speed. And all the same principles apply to the small gear. And the next interesting block is a double drive shaft. With this block, you can change the direction in which your rotation spreads, and more specifically by 90 degrees. And nothing prevents you from combining several of these blocks from the chain, directing the rotation where you need it. And besides, the double drive shaft can be turned with a wrench. And then we'll talk about the differential. This is a very interesting block in its mechanics of operation. Its main task is to add and subtract rotational speeds from two different sources. Let's sum up the rotation on the left and on the right. Let the left source have a rotation speed of 32 units, and the right one 64. Well, it seemed to me that the destruction of the shafts in the process of changing the rotation speed is the tank. Let's go back to the last moment, when both sources rotate in the same direction. In this case, the addition of velocities will be performed, and more specifically, the arithmetic mean will be found. 32 plus 64, and divide it all by 2, getting 48. Now we'll check it out. The outer ring of the differential rotates just the same at this speed. We will connect a large wheel to it, and then a speedometer, on which we will see the number 48. And now the second situation, where we have a subtraction of speeds. Let's say the first source on the left side has a rotation speed of 128, and the second one on the right side has a rotation speed of 32. And the rotation takes place in different directions. In this case, the outer ring of the differential will rotate in the same direction as the fastest source, in our case, the one with a speed of 128. And the speed is calculated as follows. We subtract the smaller one from the higher speed and divide it by 2. 128 minus 32 and divide by 2, getting 48. We will get the same number if we connect a gear and a speedometer. In addition, the differential has another interesting feature. If two sources with different permissible loads are connected to it, for example, the left one will have more. Then the differential will select the source with the highest permissible load and will reproduce it on its outer ring. At the same time, he will highlight in bright red the side that he has chosen for this task. Next, we will talk with you about the planetary mechanism. It is subject to all the same rules as the big gear, but there are some differences. For example, the shaft of a planetary mechanism will rotate in the other direction relative to the outer teeth, and at the same time, its speed will be twice as much, which can be seen on the speedometer. Next, we'll talk about a huge gear. And yes, it's really big, just like a big water wheel with a diameter of 5 blocks. To begin with, you can connect both small and large gears to a huge gear, but also their variations from this mod. At the same time, they will all be located in the same plane. And also in the inner diameter, you can install only small gears, but also their variations. Only 4 pieces. You can also install only 4 small gears on the outer diameter, and up to 8 large gears. But you will not be able to completely fill this mechanism with small large gears. More precisely, you can do it, but as soon as you give rotation, the gears will break. But nothing prevents you from leaving some space between them by combining small and large gears. And now let's talk about what you can do with this mechanism. In addition to directly connecting a large number of gears, it has other features. Let's imagine that we have a huge gear that is filled with small and large gears on the outer and inner diameter. And we apply rotation to any of them. Then the speed will be distributed as follows. The inner gears will have the same rotation speed as the larger gears on the outer diameter. But for small gears on the outer diameter, the rotation speed will be twice as high. Also about the load. The entire load will be the same on each gear. And yes, no one bothers you to make chains of huge gears like this, making your own unique combinations. And also I would like to note that a huge gear can only be made on a mechanical crafter. And I advise you to look at the detailed recipe in J fashion. On this we will say goodbye friends. I hope you liked this guide just as much as I did, and I advise you to subscribe. Because I have a lot of interesting videos on Minecraft on my channel.